right, welcome back everybody. I am Robert, here to bring you more live stream goodness for reInvent, the 10th anniversary of reInvent. And now we're going to have an industry deep dive for media and entertainment. Here with me are special guests Max and Anthony. Please introduce yourselves.
Hey everybody, my name is Max Denton. I'm a senior product manager at AWS, and I work on the AWS Elemental Media Services.
Hi, and I'm Anthony Pasmard. I'm the general manager for Nimble Studio.
Thanks for being here. And of course, my colleague, Jenna. We're really excited to talk to you today, but before we dive into the nitty-gritty details, media and entertainment, this sounds like a huge category. Just how do we think about this industry?
Yeah, it is a wide industry, and I think of media and entertainment sort of all the way through the life cycle of media content. So this could be the creation and editing of content, whether that's content that comes right off of a camera or creative animation and 3D rendering, the processing, preparation of that content, receiving content from end users, all the way to the distribution to folks' eyeballs through mobile devices or web players. So whether you're helping folks create content, receiving content from your users, distributing it, or kind of all of the above, this is for you.
Wow, that's incredibly broad. I can't imagine a single person that doesn't touch in some way. And as a result, I can imagine that we probably built a lot of solutions in this space. Can you kind of walk me through what the general pieces we have are?
Yeah, that's right. So AWS offers a suite of managed services that can help you with production-based, distribution-based, monetization-based tooling, in addition to primitive resources, sort of lower in the stack, that are optimized for the kind of compute-intensive needs of processing media. So today we're going to talk about Nimble Studios, which is a managed solution for graphics-based workflows, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Elemental Media Services, which are used more on the processing and distribution end.
That sounds very exciting.
So Anthony, you are the GM for Nimble Studio.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what it is and why did we build it for customers?
Yeah, well, Nimble Studio empowers creative studios to create content like VFX or visual effects or animation or any kind of interactive content. It basically allows artists to accelerate their workflows by using virtual workstations that are GPU powered in general, and a very fast file share that they can share content and collaborate on content, and also access to render farms to do all the big rendering jobs that they have to do. So Nimble Studio is basically it was an acquisition we made in 2019 of Nimble Collective. It was a bunch of tenured and veteran in the industry who came together to really help the industry who's not versed into infrastructure move to cloud with very simple to use solutions for content creation.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more about these customers. What types of workloads are they doing with Nimble Studio?
We've had a focus from the beginning on the visual effects and animation, and so most of our customers are in that space, but we're always surprised with what customers are doing. So we see customers in architecture and construction, in manufacturing, in gaming as well, so it's very interesting to see. There's a common workflow in content creation. You do the 3D models and all of that, and then you have to collaborate. So we're seeing a big trend there that's interesting around the game engines used in those industries, in architecture to visualize the inside of a building, in cinema, in the movies to visualize how the cameras are moving around in a scene or a shot. It's very interesting to see that whole happening. So we work, for example, with Epic, with their Unreal Engine to really help all those customers really produce the best contents possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Now you mentioned that some of these customer workloads are seeing a lot of benefits in terms of moving to the cloud and adopting some of these new practices. But what was life like for them before? How were they doing this before some of these services that
we say before, but it's still very much the case. A lot of the studios are still on-premise and they're trying to move to cloud. That's because the industry as a whole is moving to cloud. The customers like Netflix are producing hundreds and hundreds of productions a year. Amazon Studios producing hundreds of productions a year. And the demand for artists is really rising very, very high, and the studios are really struggling to find artists. That's where Amazon can help with allowing those artists to be on virtual workstation anywhere in the world, but also move their on-prem infrastructure, their costly, expensive to use, into the cloud where they always get the latest and greatest, and they only pay for what they use. That's where Amazon really comes together. It's allowing them to access artists anywhere in the world, and also move to the cloud and get the efficiencies of the cloud.
Now, you mentioned that Nimble Studio is kind of serving the customers that are more in kind of the rendering space. You mentioned Unreal Engine. How does it deal with some of the more traditional video production workloads, or are those other services that handle that?
Well, Nimble Studio is very open for customers. We're really trying to bring a platform that allows them to move to the cloud easily, but we're not forcing them into any specific software. So if they want to use Maya from Autodesk, if they want to use Adobe Premiere, if they want to use Revit in architecture, or Unreal, the game engine on Nimble, they can do that. So we're providing the infrastructure for them to run all those software, but each industry or each studio has their own workflow and their own pipeline that they can use within Nimble. So we're very open from that standpoint.
Now, when I think about some of the video experiences that I've had, especially since the big shift to mostly digital, I think about the quality of the experience, the streaming quality, and being able to have that kind of on a 24/7 basis seems like it's a huge challenge. How is AWS addressing this for our customers?
Yeah, so one of the things we're doing as well is supporting broadcast-based workflows in AWS. And so when you think of over-the-top or OTT streaming, many times this is taking finished television content that's on demand, or live events that's a finished, prepared signal, distributing it out to viewers at home. But what we're seeing is, because of the latency requirements and the quality requirements required for live TV production, like you might see for a big concert or a sporting event, oftentimes that equipment is still co-located right there next to the operators. And you can see a great example of this in things like live sporting or concerts. If you sort of drive around back one of those stadiums, you'll see these rows of semi-trailers parked, and that's because all of the processing equipment is happening right there next to the operators because the latency is that important. And so we're excited this year. We've launched a couple of big innovations that are making it easier to start to move parts of that production workflow into the cloud. So not just the encoding and distribution and packaging, the things that the Elemental Media Services do today, but now you could actually start to move some of the production, things like graphics or switching or preparing those signals into the cloud.
So I'm not a broadcaster. This is not my area. What do I need to do if I'm not actually a broadcaster? How do I get started with live video?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we talked before about how there's sort of a wide gamut of different ways that media is produced here, right? And of course, this is shifting in the landscape. People aren't just consuming super high-end concerts and sporting events. They're also consuming user-generated content, things that are much more personal to them. And so whereas on the sort of broadcast side, we've had launches this year around something called CDI, or Cloud Digital Interface, which is allowing like uncompressed video to be moved around in the cloud. These are things that are going to require dedicated networking to get into AWS. So things like an AWS Direct Connect, fiber-backed, really reliable connections. Again, replacing legacy on-premise equipment that would traditionally be very expensive and co-located. If you want to have that same broadcast quality for something on a much smaller scale, much more portable, lower budget, think company town hall events, or house of worship, government conference, things like that. We launched a product this year called AWS Elemental Link UHD. Okay. We actually created the HD version of this in 2020, and in 2021 we launched the UHD version. And the idea of this is to sort of take away all of the pitfalls and configuration and work that it used to take to get a live signal into the cloud. Okay. So you want to stream that event, you've got a cord coming out of the back of a camera or maybe out of a small production setup, you need to get that signal to the cloud reliably. You used to need a contribution encoder that has an operating system that you need to configure and secure, you need to get that stream, you need to start that stream and maintain that. All of that is now done in this box. It comes pre-provisioned, linked to your AWS account. You hook up a camera or a production feed into it, HDMI or SDI, hook up Ethernet to it, and it's going to act as a contribution encoder, use the available bandwidth, it's going to show up in our Media Live service, and you can create a stream. So now if you went to the AWS console, ordered one of these boxes, connected your signals to it, within a few minutes you could spin up an AWS Media Live channel and be streaming broadcast quality video without all the infrastructure you might think of from traditional broadcasting.
Okay.
Wow, sounds like quite the capable little device, doing so much under the hood. Now, Max, I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier. You talked about how the production of different types of video is becoming more personalized. But it occurs to me that with all these different workflows, all this different digital video on demand, live at our disposal, is there the potential to create a more personalized experience when you're consuming video?
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is another place that we feel we sort of broke the mold in 2021 that's pretty exciting, and it's a product called Channel Assembly. And it's actually a service of AWS Elemental Media Tailor. And what Media Tailor used to do in live was it would take either a live stream or a video asset, and it did what's called manifest manipulation in order to do server-side ad insertion. So this is how you get an ad inserted in the video on the server side, so your ad blocker doesn't block it, the user doesn't have a jarring experience. It sort of looks like it's been there the whole time. And how Media Tailor does this for ad insertion is sort of behind the scenes by replacing the references to the video objects in the manifest that your player consumes. And all of this is done with media assets that sort of already exist and are encoded. So we took that idea, Media Tailor still does server-side ad insertion, but we launched this additional product called Channel Assembly. And Channel Assembly now, you could create a library, you could take an existing library of video on-demand assets that you already have already been encoded, and create a personalized channel that the user at home is still going to have what we call the lean back experience, right? They're going to turn on a television, smart device, it's going to look and feel like TV. However, the operating cost of a Media Tailor Channel Assembly channel is a small fraction of sort of traditional video preparation and live streaming, because all you're really doing is playing out existing encoded assets to the user in an order and in a format that's very personalized. And of course, that can be combined with the server-side ad insertion and our packaging products to help monetize those streams as well.
So what makes this different than actual live video?
Yeah, so the big difference when it comes to comparing Channel Assembly to live video is that you're not creating new video assets every time, right? So if you think about live streaming, where live streaming really works best and economically makes sense for something like we're doing right now, right? Here we are in the real world taking in a real signal. So if you're doing sporting events, concerts, news, all of that still makes sense. But when we think of sort of linear television, when you're at home flipping through the channels, that seems live, but you're really watching finished television content that's existed for days or weeks or months or years. And so what Channel Assembly, where it's really different, is it's taking those encoded assets, it's not changing the bit streams in any way, it's simply creating a manifest that the player at home or the television at home can consume. Looks a lot like a live stream to the end user device. The person at home interacts with it just like it's a live stream, but we're not manipulating the underlying data, which means the costs are a small fraction, which is what makes that personalized experience really simple. You could have break-even points compared to traditional live streaming as low as 100 viewers. So whereas you traditionally would need thousands or tens of thousands of viewers to want to spin up an additional, call it cable television or online streaming channel, now with Channel Assembly you can have much more specialized viewer experiences at a much lower cost, and now that really opens up the creative side of the business to be really personal and engaging.
Yeah, now that's a lot to think about, you know, because you're describing a model that is totally alien to me, you know, because when I grew up, I'm used to this channel model, like I'm going to tune into channel 4, it's got this show that I like, or channel 5 because it has sports or whatever. But what you're talking about is a totally personalized experience. And I imagine what has to power that is the sheer variety of content. So what are we doing to make it easier for customers to deal with, let's say, file-based on-demand video, to assemble these channels?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the other side, while Channel Assembly takes an existing library and sort of bridges that gap you just described, so you can lean back, turn on the channel, flip between these sort of curated channels. At the end of the day, it's just presenting to you a library of VOD content, and there's some users who still want to be able to select between that VOD content. So Media Convert is our product that encodes VOD content as scale. And as you mentioned, these libraries are getting really big, they're growing quickly, there's lots of content. So Media Convert's able to encode that content at a much lower cost than you could traditionally do it, let's say on premises or with another solution. And it's able to do it in an accelerated way very quickly. And just, I guess, real quick, the big launch for Media Convert in the past year has been what's called auto ABR configuration. And it takes what used to be a fairly complex process of building these various renditions that adapt to changing bandwidth and makes them completely automatic. So now somebody who maybe doesn't have the knowledge or the background can get a really optimized, high quality experience from a source file available for a VOD library. We have lots of resources, both in the services natively and in our builder tools on GitHub to get launched creating super high quality on-demand content right away.
Wow. Max, Anthony, that's all the time we have for today, but that was a fantastic whirlwind tour of all the different problems that our media and entertainment customers are facing and how we're solving them with our latest services and features. Both of you, thank you so much for being here with us, and the show goes on.